I was around Ashton Kutcher and Diddy before, and they were speaking about Brittany Murphy. And I don't think I ever told this story, and I'm about to tell the story here.
I'm a happy type person. I smile a lot.
Brittany, please come back.
She's a Scorpio. What else do you need to know?
I'm a double Scorpio.
Double Scorpio.
She evidently collapsed in the bathroom.
So we don't know why things work out the way.
Yo, things just took a wild turn. Ashton Kutcher, who's been quiet for years, is now allegedly ready to spill some serious tea that could land him in hot water alongside Diddy. Word is, Ashton might expose how Diddy is connected to the mysterious and sudden death of Brittany Murphy, a case that's always raised eyebrows. But here's where it gets even more unsettling. Brittany was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center after collapsing, a hospital notorious for being linked to suspicious celebrity deaths, Biggie, Pop Smoke, and others whose passing left the world. Puzzled. And shockingly, Diddy's name keeps popping up in connection with all of these cases. This web of coincidences is starting to look a lot less like chance and way more like a chilling pattern. Each of these cases ends the same way. Either the individuals are declared dead under suspicious circumstances, or their autopsy reports are mishandled to the point where there's not enough solid evidence to pursue justice. What really happens behind those hospital walls? Now, with federal investigators turning their attention to these mysterious deaths, including Brittany Murphy's case after all these years, rumors swirl that Ashton Kutcher is reaching his breaking point. He's reportedly prepared to come forward and lay out the full truth. No filters, no holding back, ready to shine a light on what's really been hidden in the shadows for over a decade. If protecting his freedom means making questionable alliances, then so be it. But what initially sounds like a far-fetched theory starts to make eerie sense once you explore the tangled web connecting Ashton Kutcher, Diddy, and Brittany. There's a lot to unravel here, and the deeper you dig, the more unsettling it gets. So before we examine Diddy's rumored involvement in Brittany Murphy's mysterious death, we need to first zoom in on his oddly tight-knit and eyebrow-raising relationship with Ashton Kutcher, because that connection alone opens a door to a much darker narrative. With Diddy's trial heating up, the public has slipped into full-blown investigator mode, digging through his history with a fine-tooth comb, in search of any overlooked warning signs. And surprisingly, one name keeps surfacing in the middle of the chaos: Ashton Kutcher. Sounds bizarre, right? Because on the surface, you'd never peg Ashton and Diddy as part of the same inner circle. But as the layers peel back, the connection becomes harder to ignore. You might be surprised to learn just how far back Ashton Kutcher and Diddy's connection actually goes. According to OK Magazine, their bond kicked off in the early 2000s and quickly gained momentum. Ashton even spoke about it during his 2019 appearance on Hot Ones, describing their friendship as downright bizarre. The origin story? It all began when Diddy bluntly told Ashton, "Yo, you can't punk me," to which Ashton coolly replied, "I don't know what to tell you. Everyone's fair game." And just like that, their strange dynamic was born. The deeper Diddy's trial digs into his past, the more skeletons start rattling. And now people are revisiting names they never thought would resurface. One name catching serious side eyes is Ashton Kutcher. At first glance, that might sound random, but the connection runs deeper than anyone expected. Turns out, Ashton and Diddy go way back to the early 2000s, when their unlikely friendship sparked over a playful standoff about Ashton's prank show. From there, they became regular hangout buddies, catching games and spending time together. But with Diddy now facing major heat, that bond is starting to raise eyebrows, especially because both men's names have long been quietly attached to the mysterious death of Brittany Murphy. As the whispers grow louder, so do the questions. Brittany passed in 2009 under conditions that never quite made sense. While officials ruled it pneumonia, anemia, and a mix of meds, her close circle described her final months as filled with fear, paranoia, and isolation. She even believed she was being poisoned. At the time, those claims were dismissed as emotional distress, but now they read more like desperate warnings. Her autopsy was rushed, and medical experts later pointed out major gaps in the toxicology report. The coroner refused to dig deeper, despite glaring inconsistencies. That's when conspiracy whispers turned into full-blown suspicions. Was there a cover-up at play? Diddy's trial is peeling back layers of his power and manipulation in Hollywood, and suddenly Ashton, Hollywood's golden boy turned anti-trafficking advocate, is being dragged into the shadows with him. People are revisiting Ashton's proximity to not just Brittany's tragic end, but also Ashley Alarin, another young woman who died under disturbing circumstances. Ashton was one of the last people to see her alive. Though he was cleared, some say his public activism might have been a smokescreen, an image crafted to deflect deeper scrutiny. And with Diddy's alleged involvement in trafficking, threats, and silencing insiders, Ashton's closeness to that circle now feels impossible to ignore. Even more disturbing? Others who reportedly knew too much or got too close to Diddy's. Secrets, like Kim Porter, also died under strange but oddly similar conditions. Natural causes, like pneumonia, despite being healthy. Just like Brittany. The puzzle pieces start to click. Brittany and Ashton met on the set of Just Married, had a brief romance, but even after the relationship ended, Ashton's presence in her life lingered quietly. There were even rumors that they still saw each other after he moved on with Demi Moore, who, by the way, was also allegedly entangled in Hollywood's elite secretive social scene. When Brittany died, Ashton didn't make a public tribute. Not a post, not a word. Fans noticed the silence, and now, with everything that's surfacing, it doesn't sit right. Brittany wasn't just the bubbly actress we saw in Clueless and 8 Mile. Behind the scenes, she was scared, emotionally worn, down and feeling trapped in a toxic marriage with Simon Monjack, who allegedly controlled her finances and isolated her from loved ones. Friends say she spoke often about someone being after her. Then suddenly, she collapsed in her bathroom and was gone, just 32 years old. And if that wasn't unsettling enough, Simon died 5 months later in the same house, from the exact same causes. Investigators initially chased the idea of toxic mold in the home, but that theory fell apart. Then Brittany's father stepped in, hired a private investigator, and that's when things took a darker turn. Toxicology reports revealed heavy metals in her hair, evidence consistent with slow, deliberate poisoning. It didn't take long for people to start connecting her fate to others who died under similarly bizarre circumstances. Kim Porter's name came up again. Like Brittany, she reportedly felt paranoid before her death. Like Brittany, she died of pneumonia, the same eerie pattern. Then there's the Cassie Ventura situation, a chilling piece of Diddy's puzzle. She told a court that when she tried to leave him and turned to Kid Cudi for help, Diddy threatened to have Cudi killed and his car blown up. She said he'd do it while out of the country to avoid suspicion. She described a violent altercation, and Diddy threatening to release tapes, manipulate people, and cause harm through carefully calculated moves that sounded all too practiced. This isn't just some Hollywood gossip. These are deeply disturbing patterns, and again, Ashton's name doesn't disappear. Some say he continued seeing Brittany even during his marriage to Demi. And given how deeply Demi and Ashton were embedded in elite circles, including those infamous parties Diddy allegedly hosted, people are beginning to wonder if Brittany got too close to secrets she was never supposed to uncover. Is that why her story ended so suddenly? The fact that Ashton never acknowledged her death publicly only adds to the suspicion. Now, almost 16 years later, federal investigators are reportedly circling back to Brittany's case. And the timing is no coincidence. Something must have triggered renewed interest. Maybe a sealed testimony, maybe a buried lead. But the similarities between these cases are hard to dismiss. Whether it's coincidence or conspiracy, it's undeniable that young women, terrified, in danger, and connected to powerful men, keep ending up dead under the same mysterious circumstances, and the public is no longer brushing it off as Hollywood tragedy. The stories are starting to sink. The patterns are too clear. If Diddy really did have the reach to silence people for years, the fallout is only just beginning. And Ashton, once protected by his clean-cut reputation, might be standing a little too close to the fire this time. As we continue to peel back the layers, one thing's for sure. What happened to Brittany Murphy deserves more than silence. It deserves answers. Later on, Brittany Murphy's mother, Sharon, confessed something chilling. Brittany had been living in fear before she died. Not anxiety, not stress, real fear. She believed someone was watching her and wanted her gone. And this wasn't some paranoid delusion. Brittany stopped eating food unless it came directly from her or her mom. She upgraded her home with intense security, fingerprint scanners, cameras, the whole nine. That level of paranoia doesn't just show up uninvited. Something or someone pushed her there. Then 5 months later, her husband Simon Monjack died in the exact same house, from what seemed like the exact same mysterious illness. People started tossing around the idea of toxic mold. It seemed plausible, until you realized that Simon and Sharon themselves mentioned mold as a possible cause, and then blocked testing from ever happening. Think about that. Why float the theory and then shut down the investigation? Eventually, one of the top forensic pathologists, Dr. Richard Shepard, weighed in, and he shut the mold theory down cold. No spores, no traces, nothing in their bodies. Mold wasn't it. So the question got louder: what actually happened in that house? Those who knew Brittany best said she wasn't acting like herself near the end. Rumors swirled that she'd stumbled across something dangerous, something secretive, and the wrong people noticed. She felt watched. She thought she was being poisoned. And then she was gone. But let's talk about Simon Monjack for a second. That man was a walking red flag. Friends were stunned Brittany ever got involved with him in the first place. His background? A mess? Lawsuits, fraud allegations, unpaid debts. And the relationship? He met her when she was just 17. When they got married, he slid right into control mode, fired her team, took over her finances, even limited who she could talk to. Friends said she was isolated, locked away, always with him. He made sure she was out of reach, and once he had her under his thumb, it was like she disappeared from the outside world. And here's where it gets even darker. Simon reportedly tried to block Brittany's autopsy. Why? What was he hiding? Then he dies in the same house, same illness, same circumstances. It's either the most disturbing coincidence in Hollywood history, or something much more sinister. One theory says Simon may have been used. Maybe someone told him to slip Brittany something in her food or coffee, something he thought was harmless. Maybe it was meant to sedate her, calm her down, keep her quiet. But then she died. And Simon panicked. Blocking the autopsy might have been a last-ditch effort to cover his own tracks. But months later, he died too. And that's when people started whispering, maybe he didn't die by accident. Maybe he was cleaned up. Once the mold excuse fell apart, the whole story started, spiraling into something out of a nightmare. People who once believed Brittany's death was just a tragic fluke were suddenly forced to reconsider everything. Now let's zoom in on that autopsy, because there's one part that doesn't get talked about enough. Brittany's father didn't trust the official report. He took things into his own hands and had her hair tested by an independent lab. The results? Alarming. Her hair was loaded with heavy metals, barium, antimony, and other toxins you'd expect to find in pesticides, rodenticides, even military-grade poisons. That's not something you absorb from your environment. That points to slow, systematic poisoning. And when the original coroner was asked why these substances weren't tested for, their answer was basically, we don't test for those unless there's a reason to. But if Brittany literally said she believed she was being poisoned, what more reason did they need? And get this, it wasn't just Brittany. Actor Corey Haim died just weeks later. Same coroner, same type of symptoms. Then came Kim Porter, Diddy's ex, dead under eerily similar flu-like conditions. And of course, Simon. That's 4 people, all connected by Hollywood, all dying within months, and all surrounded by the same cloud of secrecy and fear. The autopsy didn't bring closure. It cracked the door open to even more unsettling questions. While the official cause of death was ruled as pneumonia with anemia and multiple drug intoxication, it didn't explain the full story. It didn't account for Brittany's sudden and terrifying spiral, the extreme security measures she had taken, or the eerie repetition of symptoms between her and Simon Monjack. If anything, the autopsy sparked deeper suspicion. Who truly stood to gain from Brittany's untimely death? And why did the people closest to her suddenly fall silent when their voices could have made all the difference? One of the most jarring shifts in the aftermath was the behavior of Brittany's mother, Sharon Murphy. At first, she seemed supportive of exploring every possible cause of death, including the idea that something more sinister might have been involved. She even entertained the theory of toxic mold in the home, something both she and Simon brought up publicly. Yet, when the opportunity came to pursue that theory further through proper environmental testing, they blocked it. That contradiction alone was a red flag. But then came the most perplexing twist. After Simon's death, Sharon completely reversed course. She aligned herself with Simon's narrative, the same man who had isolated Brittany, taken over her finances, and reportedly kept her emotionally and physically cut off from her friends and career. This was the same Simon who had tried to block Brittany's autopsy, raising eyebrows about what he may have wanted to hide. Yet Sharon, Brittany's own mother, chose to defend his version of events. Soon after, she quietly sold the Hollywood Hills home where both deaths occurred. She stopped pushing the mold theory and exited the public conversation altogether. No demands for justice, no ongoing investigation, just silence. It was as if the urgency to uncover the truth about her daughter's tragic end vanished overnight. Why would a grieving mother stop fighting, unless perhaps she already knew what had happened? This sudden shift left the public with more questions than answers. Was Sharon simply exhausted by grief, or was there a more complicated reason for her silence? Some observers speculated that she may have been pressured to back off. Others suspected there were financial or personal motives that aligned more closely with Simon's interests than her daughter's well-being. And then there were the even darker theories, those that hinted at deeper involvement or knowledge Sharon might have had, theories that are hard to stomach but impossible to ignore in light of her complete disengagement. The tragedy of Brittany. Murphy's death goes far beyond medical jargon or mystery symptoms. It's wrapped in contradiction, inconsistency, and deafening silence from those who should have been her loudest advocates. The autopsy didn't close the case. It opened a Pandora's box, and what we found inside didn't bring peace. It brought suspicion. And still, all these years later, the most haunting question remains. Why did the people who claimed to love her the most suddenly go quiet when the truth mattered most? And whispers grew louder. Some insiders claimed Sharon and Simon's relationship post-Brittany didn't just seem like shared grief. It felt emotionally entangled, maybe even romantic. If that's even partially true, then the story goes far deeper than anyone imagined. And where does Diddy fit into all this? Well, Brittany was allegedly poking around, asking questions about his now infamous underground parties. Parties loaded with secrets, blackmail material, and trafficking rumors. She might have learned about them through Ashton Kutcher. And once you start asking questions in that world, once you try to walk away, you become a liability. Brittany might have seen too much, tried to speak out. And in Hollywood, when you start talking, you become a target. Two people, same house, same symptoms, same silence. At some point, this stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like a cover-up. The poison, the people she was surrounded by, the high-level connections, the eerie silence from people who should have been demanding justice, it all points to something much darker than we were ever told. So yes, this case deserves to be reopened. Brittany wasn't just a fallen star. She was a young woman crying out for help. She deserved protection. She deserved answers. And if Diddy, Ashton, or anyone in that elite circle had even a whisper of involvement, it's time to pull back the curtain. Enough with sweeping it under Hollywood's red carpets. Now it's your turn. What do you think happened to Brittany? Murphy? Sound off in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. Stay sharp, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.